Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Lastly, I'll be looking at the comments and responding for the next 3 hours after this video is released. If you want to chat, but you couldn't get your comment in within that time frame, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I'll put that in the description below, or email me. Thanks. All right, everyone. Well, here we are during the weekend before the trading week of August 9th. We're going to take a look at Micron Technology today. And let's get a lay of the land and talk about why I think MU has really phenomenal potential ahead of it, but has some short-term challenges to overcome. So if you see, we're on the daily chart here, if you see this run up that started on August 19th of 2020 and then topped out on March 1st of 2021, if you remember, that's when a lot of stocks started to get slaughtered, especially in the tech space. And if we take, all this is a fib retracement between those areas. So taking one big run here. And the reason that I like this one, the topping out there was on April 12th, 2021. So the sell-off has happened since then, and you see it did get shoved down a bit there in March, but it made a valiant effort to recover. But these levels have been holding up really well. You have the 236 here where it tried to catch support. It did catch support after that first drop down, and then it caught itself on the 382 and has been batting itself around, basically range bound for the most part, between the 382 and the 236. And that's been going on for almost 2 months at this point. So the challenges that I see, so I think for one, this fib retracement is quite in play. Now, obviously, the bullish hope here would be that this 382 gives it the lift that it needs and it doesn't have to come down and test the 50 level, which would be 69.60. But if there are additional levels that I would look out for to the downside, that would be it. Obviously, it's had some testing in this area as well, but it's recovered so quickly. Every time it drops below there, it really quickly recovers to the 76.06 price point. So, for the time being, that's the one that's in play. The concern that I would have in the short term here is that we're making this series of lower highs, sort of starting from this point, and we just lop off that outlier there. It sort of gives us this downtrend that it's stuck under. And so that's what I'd be most concerned about. Just and in parallel with that, basically like a channel, it's just also making a series of lower lows. So it's not sort of like a perfect channel, but it is kind of following this down. But it's that would be my biggest concern at the moment. Now, a couple of things to look out for if we look at the indicators. The MACD recent bullish crossover has given a nice lift from about the last, say, week and a half or so. And if that can continue, there's plenty of room here for it. The MACD is still sitting like basically on the baseline. I mean, it's not that far above the baseline. So there's plenty of room to run up. And if you look at this overall trend from here to where we are today, I know that this dip is basically in line with this dip, or maybe even slightly deeper. But if you compare it to this first pullback, it's gaining strength, right? So overall, this looks to me like it is gaining momentum. And even you see on the histogram, the peaks of this most recent histogram slightly exceed, but still exceed the previous areas of bullish momentum. So I would look for it to continue in that trend. And obviously the nearest term hope would be that it gets support at this 84.05 level, which again represents that 23.6 retracement. That would break this downtrend cycle, and then it would give it an opportunity to make a run back toward that 96 again. Now, I would suspect that it's going to catch a bit. I'll put in an additional line here. I would expect it to catch some resistance here just over the 90 level, and that's because of the previous supply and demand that we see. And so there's likely going to be a bunch of orders that trigger there, and that could push it off for a while. But then if it can get support there, it should have a pretty clean run at that $96, $97 level and surpassing that previous topping outs. But I'd look for this one if it can get support over that 84.05. And again, to the downside, you have the 76.06 level. And if for some reason it can't hold that and it does continue down this path, I would look for it to catch around 69.60. But the MACD to me is generally looking pretty positive. And again, this is on the daily chart, so this is sort of like not a fly-by-night kind of indication of trend. Now, on the RSI side of things, it is sitting above the mid-range. And so if we look, the mid-range is about here where my cursor is, and it's been kind of like pinned to that slash below. So it's made a couple of attempts up and over. So what I'd be looking for is either for it to just break ranks and make a run into overbought territory. That would be the best bullish case. Or if it does come down and retest the midline like it did here, you see it had broken above the midline. It had come up to about, what is this, about 60 or so. And then when it came back down and tested the midline, it just pretty quickly fell through it, and then that pushed it almost into oversold territory. So that midline is typically pretty telling on the RSI. And yeah, so if it comes down to test it, if it falls through, then I would be a bit discouraged, and I think it's probably coming down to test this 76.06 level again. But best case scenario for the bulls, it heads into overbought territory or tests the midline and bounces right off of it and heads back up. Now, a bunch of things coming in for support from the MA side of things. So you see here, as it bottomed out here and tried to recover, it got just at this red candle, which is pretty common, it got support over the MA20. So the first candle establishing over the 20 was red. And the 200, this red one, was swooping in to offer additional support. So it was able to provide this nice lift up, and now it's establishing support over the 50 as well. So all of these MAs now sitting below the price action should provide additional levels of support if it comes down to test it. And what I would look for now is pretty soon to be in the coming days, a bullish crossover, the 20 crossing over the 200, and then the 20 crossing over the 50. And then we'd be in a fully bullish formation as long as the 20 drags the 50 along with it. Now, if we look back previously to any of these runs, it did bounce off the 200 here. You see a pretty similar kind of formation that we had. And then as the 20 crossed over the 200 and that bullish move, it kind of struggled for a few days, but then it just essentially had a liftoff. And then the 20 and the 50 provided all the support needed to carry it up toward that attempt nearing 100. Now, as it fell through pretty rapidly from those MAs, that's when it really got stuck and just got caught underneath them and basically was following them down as resistance all the way as well. So good sign, in my opinion, that the MAs positioned underneath the price action and the MACD looking like from this point forward that it could have quelled the bearish momentum and it could be picking up. Now, very quickly on the data side of things, then we'll wrap this video. We don't need to be here, but we'll be here at Ortex. So a couple of things to note. The short interest is staying away, so you don't have to worry about the shorts. There's a slew of pretty positive news recently with Micron, which you probably know. Patents being issued and earnings growth, price strength, like some good articles coming out about it. So to the extent to which anyone pays attention or makes decisions based on that, it could drag in some retail, some additional institutions. And similarly, with the analysts, 26 buy ratings, 7 hold ratings. That's really strong, especially given that they have a consensus price target up almost 40% return potential. So that's incredibly high. Now, on the other side of things, the one data point that I would look at that's potentially dragging this down a little bit is this 62 transactions selling 47 million from insiders with no buys. So that momentum in the last 12 months is not great. If we zoom in to 3 months, still it's extremely high. But whatever's driving that, who knows? But I do mostly see strong bullish signs here. Good news, really excellent ratings from analysts. And again, it's not because I think the analysts are right. It's because the extent to which retail and or institutions follow that lead and start, purchasing in order to realize that potential, that could really provide stabilization and boost the price. Shorts are staying away, so you don't have to worry about that. This is the one data point dragging it down, just like the trend line down here. That's the thing that's most concerning to me, is this down trend line that's been happening for the last, say, month or I guess 2.5 months. But other than that, MAs, MACD all look good. RSI, time will tell what happens if it makes that run or if it tests the midline. And if it tests the midline and can't hold, that to me would be a pretty bearish signal. And if it can hold, or if it just runs to overboughts, then you're probably golden, because you probably have support over this 84.05. Well, good luck if you're trading MU. I certainly wish you the best, and I appreciate you watching. I will see you in the next video.